Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam and this is a Black Dragon Japanese Cedar. This is a Black Dragon Cryptomeria, or as some people call them, Black Dragon Japanese Cedars. Black Dragon is a slow, upright, narrow growing Cryptomeria or Japanese cedar. There are other varieties. I did a video on Globosa nana Cryptomeria. It gets about 3 to 4 feet. It's a perfect little round ball. I've got a Yoshino Cryptomeria in my yard here. Those can get 50, 75 feet tall over time. This one right here, this Black Dragon, has been pruned in this 3-gallon pot to look like a little Christmas tree. Ultimately, this one can get about 10 feet in height and about 3 to 4 feet in width. Maybe over a very, very long time, a little bit bigger than that, but slow growing to get there. This one right here that's on the table that I'm planting today had all kinds of problems when it was smaller, and I just kept with it, and it's become this really funky, unusual tree. I've never sheared it or anything like that. I'm going to plant this one in my yard just because I like the fact that it looks like a Dr. Seuss tree today. But normally when you see them in a garden center or something like that, they're going to be pruned and sheared like this as a Christmas tree. Cryptomeria as a group are very cold hardy. These can grow up to zone 5 and down to zone 9, probably more like 8B or 9A. I think that it would probably in the southeast be a little too hot. In zone 9B for this plant, it probably does need a little bit of winter. Probably be fine in zone 9 in places like California where it doesn't get quite as hot in the summertime. Black Dragon is definitely not a very fast growing cultivar. We may only get 3 or 4 inches of growth out of these in a season. Like most conifers, Japanese cedars are sun-loving plants. This thing wants at least 6 hours of direct sun, and all the way to full sun would be fine. Of course, a narrow plant like this has a lot of different uses. This thing would make a great foundation plant anywhere between windows or on the corner of your foundation. Any place you need a narrow, upright plant. It would also work well as a screening plant. Also would work well in a container in zone 7 or 8. I actually considered using it just in a container on my front porch rather than where I'm going to put it today. The primary features of Black Dragon Cryptomeria are, number 1, in the spring, it gets this incredible light green growth that eventually turns dark green, but it creates this two-tone contrast for the spring and about half the summer every year. In the fall, it'll start to develop these little cones on the end right here that are persistent during the winter, which gives it a really interesting winter look. If it gets very, very cold in the winter, it can turn a little bit of a purplish hue. In my area in zone 7, it usually stays green through the entire winter. I have videos on my YouTube channel for planting woody trees and shrubs, either in clay soils or sandy soils. Not a lot to worry about on these Cryptomeria, really. I've got heavy clay soil in my yard, so I'm going to mix in a little pine bark soil conditioner. I'm going to leave it elevated a little bit, pull the soil up to the edge of it. I'm not going to cover anything that's not covered when I put it in the ground. All the same kind of practices I do on everything else. I'm going to put a little bit of pine straw around it. I'm going to mulching my yard later, so I'll put more mulch around it later this winter, and that should be good, and I'll water it in well. The first year your Cryptomeria is in the ground, you want to keep a close eye on watering it occasionally. Conifers are notorious. If they get dry, they tend to thin out in the interior, and it's very slow to fill back in. I think that's what happened to this one at one point. I was able to rescue it in the nursery, and it created this interesting look that many of you may not actually want. So keep an eye on the watering the first year. Once it's established, if you're in an area that gets regular rainfall, you won't have to do a lot of ongoing watering on it after the first year. I won't fertilize it today. When I put it in the ground in the dead of winter, I'll wait till late winter, maybe late February, and I'll give it a small amount of slow release fertilizer. Anything that'll last 3 to 4 months would be ideal. Because of the rate of growth and the upright narrow habit of this plant, it's just not really going to need a lot of pruning. If you get a crazy limb on it somewhere, you can cut it off anytime you want to. I don't think you'll ever need to do any general shearing on it. A lot of that gets done for you in the nursery. If you want to keep it in this little perfect Christmas tree shape, the time to prune on it would be the late winter before it starts to flush out in the spring, maybe mid to late February. Most of the pests we see on Cryptomeria are things like scale and spider mites, and those things tend to attack plants that aren't vigorous or aren't healthy, things that are being overwatered or underwatered or in some stress in some way. Typically a healthy Cryptomeria just doesn't really have many pest problems, and they are considered very, very deer resistant. So thank you very much for watching my video. I'm confident that you can grow a Black Dragon Japanese Cedar. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and comment below with any questions you have. Thanks again for watching.